This is where the big boys play, huh? We ain't here to play.
At the total combined weight. At the total combined weight of 589 pounds.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, at well over 500 pounds, this is where the big boys play.
All right, welcome to the show, everybody. This is At a Combined Weight. I am your host, Charlie Dudley, joined, as always, by Robert McElroy. This week, we're going to be looking at the September 2nd, 1996 WCW Monday Nitro. It is the anniversary show for Monday Nitro. And before we get right into it, how you doing today, Rob?
I'm well, thank you, Charles. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks for including me as a part of the, the introduction there. So kind. He's being really quiet. Let me bring in his ass. Goddamn podcast tyrant. Raw.
Where the commentary opens the show recounting what happened last week with the NWO attacking the Horsemen, Sting, and Luger. And Larry Zbyszko, interesting to note, especially with what happens within the show, points out that the NWO has a leader and WCW doesn't have one and needs one. And he's saying somebody needs to step up. The Giants stepped up and faced Hogan at Hog Wild. Macho Man's facing Hogan at Halloween Havoc. Flair stood up, and he faced him at Clash of Champions, and will also lead the Horsemen into the Fall Brawl War Games match.
And he did mention that Ric Flair should be one of those leaders.
Right.
So we'll see if Ric Flair steps his ass up and is that leader for WCW.
The show opens with DDP, Alex Wright, and you and I talked about this prior to the show, about this match being a little bit surprising because of the amount of offense that Alex Wright got.
Definitely. Alex Wright had the majority of the offense throughout the match. Both guys here come out of it looking strong, which I like that. I thought it was very good booking on the part of WCW. Of course, the diamond cutter out of nowhere as DDP would win the match, but Alex Wright looked good, and you came away from this match knowing that Alex Wright is a formidable foe. Don't you think WCW did a really good job with that? Like with WWE, they create such top-heavy scenarios.
Yeah, they do.
And anybody on this part of the card, especially guys who are losing, you as a fan don't think they have a snowball's chance in hell of any sort of trajectory.
Right. But I think this time period is the reason that we have the top-heavy booking that we have nowadays.
Sure.
Because, you had to keep a lot of guys strong back then to add to that must-see product every week. And, Alex Wright staying strong out of this, it puts DDP in that upper mid-card while Alex Wright's still firmly in that mid-card. And I don't think WWE right now does a good job of developing that mid-card to upper mid-card. I think they just have top guys in mid-card. There's not that upper mid-card guys on the rise because they do so much 50-50 booking. They seesaw and yo-yo guys back and forth all the time, and it allows, or it cuts the knees out of guys when the fans get behind them. They don't get behind them for long because they're not booked well.
Yeah, and here, Alex Wright's a perfectly likable character. DDP, likable as a heel. He'll have one hot babyface run, and I can't wait for us to cover that, honestly.
Yeah, but DDP is not really liked. They don't cheer him.
They don't.
But they pop huge for the Diamond Cutter.
Mm-hmm.
The Diamond Cutter is the RKO out of nowhere well before the RKO even existed.
Yeah, and I used to do it to my friend. I used to do it to my brothers. It was one of those.
Oh, it's a move you can do
moves.
to anybody. I mean, it doesn't matter how big or how small they are. You can still drive them to the mat.
It kind of it hurts the person executing it more than it does the individual. Is what
depends.
I'm also not classically trained.
True enough. Post-match segment, Gene talks to the trending heel Nick Patrick, which called this match straight down the middle, and Nick Patrick kind of calls into question Mean Gene for bringing up the fact that Nick is making some questionable decisions within the ring. And I know that Nick Patrick ends up being a heel referee for the NWO, but I thought it was, at this point, it was kind of much ado about nothing in regards to his in-ring actions outside of the blatant chop block on Luger and him pulling Hall out of the way.
You think this interview was much ado about nothing? I think
the whole overblown. I think the interview is a product of the overblown much ado about nothing. Them pushing the fact that Nick Patrick is screwing all the baby faces, and we'll see that come into play later in the show. But I just didn't like how much time was spent on this, I guess.
Well, they slow build everything. That horse, we've beaten that dead horse plenty of times on this show. But I think Nick Patrick, to his credit, does a good job as a heel.
Yeah, he does.
I think he cuts a good promo. I'm not just suffering through these segments he has with Gene and feeling sorry for him. You know that feeling where you just kind of feel sorry for the person that's trying to cut the promo.
Yeah,
that's trying to do a segment.
Kind of like the Titus promo this past week.
I totally missed that, actually. Was it terrible?
Yeah, it was pretty awful.
Yeah. Well, I think Nick Patrick does a really good job with Gene here and in most of these interviews. It was funny, we didn't talk about it on the previous show, but last week when they had one of these segments, he tells Gene, he's like, it's all over the newspapers. Y'all are slandering my name all over the media. And he's like, oh, good and the news and the newspapers are not touching this shit. Oh, good and damn well.
Yeah, it's not on the cover of USA Today that Nick Patrick's a heel referee.
No, but as a kid, it did bother me that mainstream sports news, especially ESPN, didn't touch wrestling. I wanted, to me, that ESPN didn't cover wrestling. That made them irrelevant in my little life.
So now that they do, does that warrant your attention more?
No, because I'm not a big fan of ESPN in the first place.
I hate the fact that ESPN covers them now.
I think it sucks. I think it's, I don't know, call it a desperation move, call it what you want to.
I think it is a desperation move because ESPN is just so, I don't know. They've become really, really politically based, I think, in a lot of ways. And I'm not a huge fan of that. And the talking heads just aren't really as, I think they just try to troll people on TV nowadays.
I agree. I don't like how I don't like how contradictory they've been at times.
Oh yeah, they're super contradictory.
Oh my God, unbelievable! I mean, you'll have segments. This outside the lines nightly. Get the fuck out of here, talking about concussions and CTE and all this. But you'll put together a montage of these monster hits, guys' helmets popping off and shit. It's pick a stance here, be consistent.
Or they'll cover, and the mainstream media is really guilty of this. They'll cover Ryan Lochte breaking a free sign in Brazil every fucking day for hours on end, and you've got several guys in the NFL that have domestic violence charges against them, and we barely see anything about it.
Right. So
I would much rather have a dumbass that parties too hard and breaks a free poster at a Chevron or an Exxon station than somebody that beats the shit out of a woman, on my team or a team that I support. But
yeah, sure. So that's our little rabbit hole.
Yeah.
That will go down. We have those on here.
Up next, Colonel Parker and Sherry with Mean Gene in the back. And
yeah, but we've once again skipped a very important those 90s-tastic WCW commercials they would show. This one advertising a blue denim jacket that can be yours.
I thought it was a shirt.
Excuse me. Yeah, it was a blue denim button-up. You're right. $39.95 plus $7.95 for shipping. Gene's there with Marcus Alexander Bagwell pushing the shirt. In the 90s, denim was huge.
Yeah, it was. It was really huge. I was never a huge fan of it. I never caught on to that. I don't even like wearing blue jeans. So
I've never seen you in jeans. Ever.
Yeah, well, we've been friends since what, 04, 05?
06, but no
06.
No 10 years in September.
A decade that you've known me and you've never seen me in jeans. I think the last time that I wore jeans was as a pledge cleaning the fraternity house because you had to wear jeans.
Oh, okay, got it.
And I never wore jeans since then. But I never really wore jeans to begin with. I'm more of I might sound country to you people listening that aren't from down here, but I'm not very country at all.
No, you're really not. You're really not at all, especially in the way you dress.
I'm a very polo and khakis and Sperry's type guy.
Well, that and when you're lounging, like, it's going to be a band T-shirt.
Yeah, it's a wrestling or a music T-shirt or some kind of T-shirt that says some bullshit on it.
It's true.
What was that barbershop window? I used to buy shirts off there all the time when when PW Insider was linked up with them.
Man, I had forgotten I was trying to think of the name of that the other day, the barbershop window T-shirts. So some of those I wish I had purchased.
I've got a ton of them. I've got the Dynamite one. I've got there's one that's the Incredible Hulk dressed up like Hulk Hogan.
There's one that's Vader time.
I have the Vader time. Watch out, fucking love. God, I miss Vader.
Dude, all right. So this is very relevant to our show as far as shirts are concerned. I got my Four Horsemen T-shirt in the mail.
Oh yeah, where is it?
I did. It's in the dirty clothes pile. I wore the shit out of that thing.
Nice. Did you hold up four fingers while you did it?
Oh, yes. I elbow dropped things. I bladed my forehead.
Oh, good.
I promoted against people.
Hit people with briefcase and held a chihuahua.
I wasn't the Mongo portion of.
Yeah.
I'm kind of large, so I was it looks Arn Anderson-esque on me.
That's good. He's a great individual.
Oh, one of the best ever. But going back to denim, my brothers and I, there's a portrait. It was like a Christmas picture sent to like all of Columbiana and everywhere else of us three. We're all wearing blue jeans with our button-down blue jean shirt.
Very nice. Very reminiscent of Scott Hall in his debut in WCW minus the whole vest thing.
Well, I've already talked on the show about how I wore a blue jean vest once to school, and somebody made fun of me, and I never wore the damn thing again.
Yeah, by the power of this vest on me.
By the power of this vest on me. So, but okay, yeah, you were going to go into Mean Gene with Sister Sherry. And
Mean Gene with Sister Sherry, Colonel Rob Parker. Parker brings Sherry some gifts, and speaking of vests, he buys her a leather vest and some leather pants.
This is the fashion portion of our show.
And they talk about how she's going to come to his ranch and they're going to ride horses, but he gives her stuff that looks like they're going back to Sturgis.
Absolutely.
Like a leather vest and leather pants. And they're going to ride. For me, it made no sense.
Mm-mm.
No sense at all.
I wonder if Colonel Parker was like trying to make himself out to be something of a perv. You know, I'd like for the chick I'm dating to be riding around my ranch on a horse with leather and assless chaps.
Well, yeah.
Maybe he's trying to perpetuate that. I don't know. When she jumps into his arms and kisses him on the cheek, all right, she leaves a big red lipstick mark, but I didn't see at first that she had kissed him. She must have done it very quickly. It looked to me like he had been split wide open previously, and like the gash just kind of got Ric Flaired. Like he might have had like cauliflower ear or something. And he looks split the fuck open, but it's just Sherry's lipstick, gobs of it, right there.
I definitely did not notice that in my viewing. I did not notice the lipstick that looked like a busted open cauliflower ear.
It looked for a moment when I did not know what it was. Like, oh God, Jesus! What the hell happened to Parker?
And your chest gets tight.
My chest gets tight. I feel like I'm gonna fucking die.
Because you don't like blood. Yeah, it's interesting that you don't like blood, but you love wrestling.
I like blood in my wrestling. I can handle. There's some shit out there I can't handle, but it comes up. Like, I can't, for instance, stomach, going back to fucking ESPN, like, when they show a really gruesome injury, I can't watch it. I can't watch bones twisting.
See, I can watch all that shit. Like, I'm fine with it. And I guess the reason why wrestling doesn't bother you is because you understand the concept of blading. But does it bother you to see a guy blade? Or if you see a guy get busted open hard way and you know it's hard way?
No, wrestling these days so rarely has blood that if someone gets busted open hard way, I pop like hell.
Yeah.
You know,
I like there to be blood when it is necessary for there to be blood. You know, that adds to the heinous acts of a heel. You know, adds to the heat of a match. If you're in a cage match, there should be some kind of blood. And I'm neither here nor there on them blading or what. If they want to do blood packets and make it, you know, fake blood, I'm fine with that because I don't know, you know, I wouldn't want to have like blood-borne illnesses and all that shit be subject to that kind of stuff. So, and it's their choice to do. If they're comfortable with blading and all that stuff, let them do it. But as long as there's blood somehow, I don't care if it's like pig's blood or chicken blood that they've put in packets or whatever the hell it is. I just want there to be that crimson mask, to steal a Jim Ross term, if you will, when it calls for it. I'd like there to be blood, and I think it adds to the product.
It absolutely does. Have you ever seen actual, like, fake blood they use on movies and TV sets and stuff? Been around that shit?
No.
It looks real as hell.
I bet. That's the whole point.
It looks legit. Like, consistency, color, it's on point.
Yeah, I mean, if it looks so good, then I think they should use it. They should use it whenever they need to. Instead of cutting themselves open so they won't look like a cutting board when they're 50, 60 years old in these retrospective DVDs that they'll be talking on, you know?
Dude, Michael P.S. Hayes, the late Dusty
Rhodes.
Dude.
Flair to a certain extent. You know, as far as his hair recedes now, you can see all those damn blade scars. And it's so easy for him to bust them open because there's so much scar tissue up there.
True. That's true. Well, toward the end of this segment with Gene and Sister Sherry, or now she's Queen Sherry, right?
Yeah, he calls her his queen. So they just call her Scary Sherry, whatever.
Well, toward the end of this segment, Gene, Sherry, and Colonel Parker, Gene notes how, you know, Harlem Heat has a match coming up. What are y'all doing back here? You don't seem to be paying much attention to the match. I took it as foreshadowing, but the match itself, Harlem Heat would take care of Greg Valentine and Buddy Valentino.
Yeah, you thought it was foreshadowing until you saw who they were facing.
True.
Greg Valentine, the receiver of title shots in WCW. It's like, oh, we need somebody to fight a champion. Where's Greg Valentine? Throw him out there.
As well as they book around this period of time, it makes zero sense how many title shots that guy gets.
Seriously, he's gotten in probably 8 weeks. He's gotten 2 WCW World Heavyweight title shots and now a WCW Tag title shot.
It's ridiculous.
And, I mean, I love Greg Valentine, but this isn't 1983. It's 1996, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Speaking
Still
of
in great-
1983.
Still in great shape and all that. I admire how well he's taken care of himself up to this time to still be able to perform in the mid-'90s, but by no means does he deserve title shots.
Right. Yeah, speaking of 1983 or great 80s wrestlers, before this match gets started, we see Ted DiBiase's show back up. And he walks down toward ringside, and the speculation begins. You know, last week he shows the four fingers and then the fifth, and there's speculation that he's the fourth member of the NWO and he's bringing a fifth with him. Will it be an outsider? Will it be a guy that defects from the ranks of WCW? That was kind of the entire backdrop of this match because it was a nothing match to me. Harlem Heat against Buddy Valentino and Greg Valentine. It's going to be, Booker T hits Valentino with a Harlem Hangover. Then there's a post-match interview with Mean Gene. And I really liked the way that they did the post-match interview because it was different enough to seem normal, not to where, you know, normally he'll interview them in the ring or on the entranceway. And here they interviewed him right by ringside so that they could get attacked by the Nasty Boys. But we had seen the promo that you really loved of Flair in the last Nitro. They talked to all the horsemen in this same spot, but from a different angle, if you remember. I say I'm weird and I notice these kind of things. But it's really well done because the Harlem Heat, they have their backs turned to the entranceway, and it leaves them open to the Nasty Boys.
And Nasty Boys wasted no time. Stevie Ray opens up, talks about how he's tired of these fat beer-drinking suckers. One of them talks about ending their career. Nasty Boys haul their big asses out there and just...
Oh, yeah. They probably were sucking wind as soon as they got out there.
I mean, seriously. And the crowd pops, but they were so quick getting out there that it wasn't one of these obvious... You know, because you have to think, all right, you have two guys promoing with Gene. Crowd's going crazy. Why not turn around and see what the crowd's doing? No, Harlem Heat didn't have time. Nasty Boys were on them. I thought it was well done like that. You're talking about ending our careers. These Nasty Boys they're renegades anyway. It's a part of their gimmick.
Right.
They're going to whip your ass if you're talking about ending their careers.
Yeah, I thought it was really well done. Especially with the placement of them right outside of the ring. You know, we've seen a couple different promos done from this position. They have their backs turned. The Nasties are yelling and are coming down while the crowd's yelling, and then we just have a melee. And it just pushes the Fall Brawl matchup between these two teams. Up next, we have the Glacier teaser video with the more martial arts moves and a staff and some nunchucks. I guess you would call them nunchucks. They weren't chained together, but they were like shorter staffs, and they looked like nunchucks, but they weren't like chained together. So I'm not a martial arts guy, so if the if the damn Ninja Turtles didn't have them, I don't know what the hell they are.
Maybe one of our listeners can like tweet at us and tell us what it was. Or
it was like a mix between the size, you know, those little trident, like mini tridents. I don't know which damn Ninja Turtle had them. I think it was Michelangelo.
With the size?
No, Raphael had the size.
Raphael had the size, and Michelangelo
had the nunchucks.
Nunchucks, yeah.
And Donatello had the staff.
When you told me that he had nunchucks, I was like, how did I miss him having nunchucks? It's like my favorite martial arts weapon.
But they didn't have a chain. They were just shorter sticks.
Yeah, so
it was like a mix between nunchucks and size.
Yeah, like if nunchucks and size got together and had sex, they
would have to have sex with the bow too, because they were wooden. Or the nunchucks could be wooden, I guess. They looked wooden to me.
Nunchucks are always like wooden or plastic. Actually, in my youth, I owned some nunchucks.
Oh, I'm sure you fucking hit shit all over the place with them damn things. As big as you are, and damn slapping shit all over the goddamn place with your damn tree trunk arms and bear claw hands, killing fucking Blake and Malin all over the place.
Dude, these are the kind of nunchucks they're padding around the staffs, so you couldn't just like totally kill yourself or others.
Well, that's good. That was a very well devised plan by the manufacturers and the parental guidance that allowed you to purchase them.
I can't believe they allowed me to purchase. We were at the beach and wanted a souvenir. And
Did you swing them around and dun 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 dun?
I don't remember like doing my best glacier in them. I don't remember me like jostling around with them that much.
Well, that's good. What a waste of a fucking purchase then.
I remember seeing like one day I think the dogs had got a hold of them.
Oh, good.
And one day the padding was off of them, so they were more exposed and could do more damage.
Well,
so
good. Glad that you took care of your stuff.
You know it. I'd have a lot more cool memorabilia if I took care of my shit. I don't own a single wrestling figure, action figure, not one.
I don't know where all of mine. I think my mother gave mine away, or they're in a box in her attic somewhere. I know I have some from the senior center when everybody used to purchase them, and we put them all around and display them. They're in a box in my storage unit right now. There's
awesome.
like Shelton Benjamin Flair with the big gold belt and the robe. There's a Bret Hart, Legion of Doom. I guess it would be the Road Warriors. There's Dusty Rhodes with a cowboy hat.
Nice.
Randy Orton. I mean, there's quite a few of them because everybody bought their favorite guy.
You had a Triple H one at one point.
Yeah, we did.
Because what people like to do is go over to your place and like take one and hide it somewhere. And I remember somebody took one down and had hit it, and you're like, I'll never forget your laying there in your big ass lazy boy, and you're like, where the fuck is Triple H? I might have not been in Chi-Fi that long, or I was still a pledge, but I was like, someone find fucking Triple H, please. He is pissed. Someone get Triple H.
Because they were in a certain order, and
oh god,
they were. I like my shit to be organized.
No, I've lived with your ass for 3 years. You do not like shit to be organized.
You
like certain things to be organized.
There you go. Certain
but
things.
But when I say
organized.
certain things, goddamn, there's specific things that you prefer. Like your curio cabinet with all your autographs and shit like that was like pristine. Yes, that's an example.
That's what I'm talking about. The rest of the shit, I don't care if like my remotes are in the same place or like my blankets are folded or the non-existent couch cushions that people didn't purchase. But there are certain things that need to be in an organized place, and those wrestling figures at the senior center were one of them.
Did you have like alphabetical order or some shit?
I think it might have been the order in which they were purchased.
Oh.
Or there were new guys with old guys, something like that.
Don't confuse our listeners a senior center. It's what you
Now,
call
I was
your
about to
continuity.
explain that the senior center is not a place where old people dwell or do activities. It's the nickname for my apartment in college because all of us older guys lived in there, and all of like 5th and 6th year seniors hung out there all the time because all of us just fucked around in college and wasted our parents' money and whatnot until we graduated.
And all of you there minimum 5 years, it seemed like.
Oh yeah, no doubt. At that point, when it was dubbed the senior center, you had all of us had been there. We were on our 5th year at that point.
Yeah.
All in victory laps. I took 2 of them.
We so I think we're on our.
I know where we are.
Like second or third match.
I know where we are. Dean Malenko, Chris Jericho. Jericho comes out with a sweet, sparkly jacket, very reminiscent of the light, bright jacket minus the lights. It was just sparkly. Pretty solid match. Jericho flew around a little bit more. It was very reminiscent of his early style. Huge white meat babyface in this one. Great back and forth. Lots of near falls. Jericho ends up getting the win with a forward roll, and then he celebrates with the Lambda Kais in the front row.
Yeah, I love how Mike Tenay joins the match. I always love when Mike Tenay's on commentary.
He adds so much to the match.
So much. And this one, he gives you the nugget such as, he's talking about how Malenko and Jericho both wrestled in Japan, but they were both in separate promotions, so they never wrestled each other. So as a viewer, you're like, oh, cool. So they wrestled in the same territory, and now they finally get to face one another. It adds more.
Yeah, it does.
To the match. It adds a lot more to the match.
Yeah.
DiBiase takes an exit during this match, and the big question is why? Why is DiBiase suddenly deciding to exit? Becomes a big question here.
Yeah, he's up to no good, or he's going to the bathroom, or doesn't Zbyszko bring up his beeper or something of that sort?
Maybe he's got a beeper on him and it beeped. Yeah, everyone's bringing up these serious questions. I mean, if he's the fourth guy, what is he going to go do? Could he still be one of the horsemen? Maybe he's got a beeper and it beeped. People don't have beepers anymore. That's another funny thing. This is such a 90s.
Oh, yeah. They had
gadget.
beepers in 96, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we had beepers in 96.
Oh, yeah, no doubt they did.
Yeah.
No doubt they did.
Shivani brings up, he's talking about how he has security with him, and once again, Zbyszko, well, maybe he had to use the men's room.
Yeah.
Trying to be very Bobby Heenan here.
Yeah, sure. He did his best, Bobby Heenan. It was not very good. Up next, you had a promo video pushing Rey Mysterio Super Calo for the Cruiserweight title at Fall Brawl. This is another instance where I guess it's just me being weird about getting title shots, but you haven't seen Super Calo on Nitro ever or in a long-ass time, but he's getting a title shot against Rey at Fall Brawl. I don't like it. I think that, you've got Malenko, who, he just lost to Jericho, but you could easily say that he had his mind elsewhere on Rey. And Rey even talks about Malenko in the last Nitro. When Malenko comes out and watches Rey, why not go ahead and involve them at Fall Brawl? And if you want to, I never understood how WCW, in so many ways, they book things so well, and then in others, it's just, why is Super Calo getting a title shot?
Yeah, specifically with how they book championship matches, is where they do such a piss poor job around this period of time.
And we've talked before how the television title is rarely, if ever, defended on Nitro up until this point. I mean, we're on 51, and this is going to be episode, 13? And we haven't had the television title defended once.
Yeah, it's strange.
In 13 episodes.
Golly, that's so weird.
And
that's
there was
bizarre.
a title change before this. Lord Steven Regal defeats Lex Luger, so we'll obviously see it more. But why even put it on Luger if he's not going to defend it? It's the television title, which means it's supposed to be defended on fucking television.
Right.
I mean, they might as well just call it the forgotten title. Which, I mean, you talked about
title.
Before about how Flair holds the U.S. title and he doesn't even really walk around with it.
Yeah, I mean, here you have Flair, who's the United States champion, and if you're a viewer who hasn't tuned in in previous weeks, you don't know he's the United States champion. He doesn't carry it around with him.
No, not at all. Not at all. Up next, you had the Giant versus Brad Armstrong. Brad Armstrong had a very, very underrated theme song, which is a ripoff of Rainbow in the Rose by Winger, which is a fantastic song.
This is the portion of the show in which Dudley marks out because it's 80s or he marks out because it's Jericho. So
it wasn't 80s. It was 1990.
That's so... 1990 was chock full of 80s stuff.
And I think Winger unjustly gets lumped into the hair metal, and they're so much better than a typical hair metal band as far as talent goes. Red Beach is such a great guitar player. Rob Morgenstein was a fantastic drummer with Dixie Dregs, and he's a drummer for Winger too. Such a talented group musically, but they got lumped into that hair glam metal, And if you've never heard Rainbow in the Rose, or you don't really realize who Winger is, the song 17 or Hungry or Headed for a Heartbreak, you've heard their stuff. They had tons of hits in their brief stint in the late 80s, early 90s. So,
do you think, just as WCW took a lot of different themes and Hagewooded it and made it their own, do you think they meant to do that here, or is this just something
no doubt.
you noticed?
No doubt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it feeds into everything we've seen from the other themes, like how Jericho's theme will be even flow, and DDP's theme smells like Teen Spirit. They're all just like knockoffs.
Yeah.
Because they want the fans to pop for them. All the WCW like on purpose themes where you're like Steiner Line and A Man Called Sting.
Here's the story of two brothers.
Terrible. It's just like tell stories.
Probably my favorite theme in WCW around this time, or actually it ranks really high up there. I pop for Steven Regal's.
Really?
I think it so fits his character.
Well, it does. It does.
It's catchy, and I like shit like that. I was a big time choir nerd. I don't know any instruments. It wasn't like the choir nerds and the band people. My school didn't have a band, but like I could have easily fallen into that world because I pop for just really interesting instrumentals, like Amadeus, one of my favorite films ever. Anyway.
Are you a big fan of the Falco song, Amadeus?
I dig it. Just fine. The film, though, is one of the greatest ever. 1984 Academy Award winner. I think it won I can't remember. Between 6 and 8 Academy Awards. Racked the fuck up is what it did. Powerful film. Powerful film.
If it doesn't have the Falco song in it, though?
No, it was
a joke, Robert. I know it doesn't. It's a fucking, real film. It's not going to have Amadeus.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize that you were joking.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
during the Giant Brad Armstrong match, the Giant throws Brad Armstrong all over the place. Schiavone acts like the Giant's mind is somewhere else. He's preoccupied with something, kind of laying the groundwork unjustly in my mind about a possible maybe jump for the Giant here. Giant gets a win with a choke slam. During the match, the limo shows up, which was the definitive question throughout this era of Nitro. When the limo shows up, that means the NWO is there, and there might be extra members in the limo. Who else is in the limo? Did they bring another person? And this is a rightly so questioning, because you had DiBiase leave in the previous match, and then the limo shows up, which means that maybe DiBiase went to go meet the next member of the NWO. That's what you're kind of led to believe here.
And as a young viewer, I was very excited to see guys like DiBiase show up. Much later, we'd see Kurt Hennig show up. Between all that, we'd get Roddy Piper, and you're like, holy shit, they were just on USA Network.
Yeah.
And now they're here. That was really exciting to me about the product around this particular point in time. And I bought WCW as the relevant product, partially as a result.
Yeah, I loved seeing DiBiase. I was a big, big $1 Million Man fan. Even as a young kid, when you're not really supposed to like heels, I just loved him. I thought he was so cool. And I guess he was one of the first guys, to me, that I liked that I wasn't supposed to like. And I guess it kind of made me a little more of a heel fan as a kid. I just thought that all of his stuff was cool. I thought his vignettes where he did rich shit was cool. I liked the way that he worked matches. His Hasbro figures were awesome.
Well,
we talked about that on the last show.
That was a great heel character, a really great gimmick.
Yeah, fantastic.
A rich guy who likes to shove it in people's faces. He played it to a T. I thought Erwin R. Shyster is somebody I liked around, even though he was a heel. I kind of liked him at a distance. Don't shake your head at me. But he reminded me.
I hated him.
He reminded me of my Uncle Brad. Like, my Uncle Brad kind of looked like him, the glasses and the hair and this, like, the white collar way.
Hope your Uncle Brad didn't suck as much as him.
I mean, no, I don't think so.
I mean, nothing against Mike Rotunda. I liked, some of his work with the Varsity Club and, thank him for procreating and giving us Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas, but I never was a big fan of IRS, nor was I a fan of VK Wall Street. I hated when DiBiase ended up with Money Inc. I thought it just kind of watered down his character. I didn't think that he needed to be in a tag team.
Him being with Money Inc. is what I remember the most about Ted DiBiase, as far as what I watched.
That's shit, though. That's because you're young.
I'm a year and a half younger than you, I think.
But I guess you jumped into WWF late then, because, I mean, what I remember is DiBiase headlining them WrestleMania 4 against the Macho Man, and I also remember the feuds with DiBiase and Dusty Rhodes, and how Sapphire joined Dusty Rhodes, and Dusty Rhodes joined the $1 Million Man, turning her back on Dusty Rhodes, and how he was devastated, and loved that feud. And I loved Dusty Rhodes. I loved both guys. So it was kind of odd. I wanted Dusty Rhodes to get his comeuppance, or get DiBiase to get his comeuppance from Dusty, because I thought he did Dusty wrong, and then he took his lady.
Gotcha.
But up next we had your boy, his commercial. He's pushing his. I just can't really. And I never really liked the Hollywood Hogan gimmick as a young guy, and I really now, it just solidified the fact that it's like, well, okay, maybe you'll have an appreciation for it now as like a smarter fan, but no, I hate it just the same.
I hated him as a kid because he was such a dastardly heel and he had stabbed all of us in the back. The gimmick now, Hogan was doing his very best to create a very unlikable character, and to his credit, he succeeded.
Yeah.
He succeeded here. Yeah, the promos aren't that good, but
they're terrible. They're very rambling.
You come away, no matter what kind of fan you are, whether you're a 10-year-old Rob or 30-year-old Rob, you don't like this guy.
Yeah.
And I say props to you, Hogan. I mean, I've seen heels that were trying to be unlikable just be downright unnecessary and get what you call X-Pac heat. Look no further than John Laurinaitis about 5-6 years ago, however long.
Yeah, people power.
Yeah, he says during this promo, Luger will be hung. No, Sting will be stung. Luger will be hung. Flair won't be there. Arn won't be Arn anymore.
Yeah, I thought the whole rhyming thing was stupid. I just thought that he's basically doing the same type of promos but trying to make them mean. And he's dropping the whole prayers and training and vitamins. It's just a lot of his stuff is very redundant and repetitive, and it just sucks. Fucking sucks. It's
it wasn't a very good
terrible.
segment at all. I actually think it's all the time we should spend on it.
Hour 2 begins. Bischoff recaps last week NWO actions, and they've been pretty busy the last few weeks. Last week especially, they spray painted the truck. DiBiase shows up. The NWO beats down the Horseman, Sting, and Luger, and they took over the broadcast booth. That's a lot in 1 week. And so they were rightly so kind of on alert, what's next, how, kind of reeling at this point.
Oh, yeah.
And Ron Studd, Macho Man, Randy Savage up next, kind of a nothing match. Just Ron Studd's kind of the surrogate for the Giant again here, as he was when he faced Chris Benoit to push the Benoit Giant match at Clash of the Champions. Here, Stud is being used to be the surrogate for the Giant, as Macho Man will battle the Giant at Fall Brawl.
It was during this match in which we would see the limo and the members of the NWO getting out of it, and Hogan's freaking out that he sees the camera. You know, usually the NWO's happy to have the cameras around,
right?
So you could see us spray paint, you can see our chicanery, you can see that we're taking over. This is one of those rare cases where Hogan's like, "Get that camera the hell out of here."
Yeah, and it really does push the idea of a new member coming.
Yes.
You know, we had seen DiBiase throw up that fifth finger. We're assuming that he's the fourth, even though at this point in the program, we don't know that he's the fourth guy yet. But we assume that a fifth guy's coming, and this lets you further know as a viewer, I cannot take my eyes off of this WCW product if I want to see who the new member of the NWO is.
Well, and you mentioned how much was going on around this period of time. You had a lot to keep up with as a fan.
Yeah.
Which was a part of what made it such great television. It was during this match at 48:03, I made note of it, that you see a guy in an Auburn sweater.
Yeah, this is what, in Chattanooga? The UTC
This is in
arena?
Chattanooga. Yeah, so far during this telecast, I had seen a Tennessee Peyton Manning jersey from around that period of time, somebody wearing UA, and then we get an Auburn guy here. So I immediately
I saw some Braves stuff, so I thought it was in the South, and then we talked about it and we looked it up, saw that it was in Chattanooga, and I knew they had to be close to North Carolina because Fall Brawl's in Winston-Salem, and at this point you're less than 2 weeks away. Yeah, and they also mentioned that it's Flair country in the next couple matches or the Horseman country as they called it.
I believe it was the previous week they were in Palmetto, Florida, so they were going to remain in that southeastern footprint and just kind of.
Well, yeah, they didn't really go far outside of the southeast during this time period until they got really hot and big, and they were able to fill up big ass arenas. And they stayed. I mean, especially in this time, I mean, they were, doing pretty well. I mean, they're not going to go up north in like Philly and around that. That's ECW territory, and if you get into New York. It's WWF back then, so they're, in their wheelhouse, if you will.
Absolutely, they are.
Staying close to Atlanta.
Yeah, absolutely. Up next, we get Mean Gene Okerlund with Macho Man Randy Savage, and I love how thoroughly Mean Gene sets up the promo. Mean Gene, whether it's his days in WWF or here with WCW, he never stuck that microphone in a wrestler's face without setting up the story first for the viewer and for the talent that was getting ready to talk. But in this case, like Gene, it seems like he's on the microphone 5 minutes. Thank you, Bobby, Larry, Tony. I want to talk about the course of events in this man's life for the next month and a half.
Yeah.
He says something to that effect.
Yeah, he does. He was talking about how the Horseman stole his money because Liz left him, and then his best friend turned his back on him, and then he got beat up, and Hogan beat the Giant, even though Savage stepped aside and said that, the Giant could have first crack at him, and then Macho goes nuts on the fact that he's nuts, and he says, Mean Gene says something to the fact that many people think you're living on the edge. And then the great line that both of us loved and both of us wrote down and made sure that we wanted to talk about it. If you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much room. There's something to be said for that. I mean, you could apply that to your life. You're not taking chances and, trying to seize opportunity. Listen to the fucking Macho Man, guys.
Absolutely. And, it's funny how Gene's talking about how he wants to talk about what's coming up in Macho Man's life for the next month and a half. What he was really telling us is he'd like to talk for the next month and a half to set up all this stuff. Love how Gene brought up Macho Man's mental state. He's not just a guy that interviews wrestlers during this period of time. He's billed as, in the kayfabe world, he is an investigative journalist.
Right.
It's important to Gene as the investigative journalist to ask Macho Man and any other wrestler the hard question. And in this case, it's Randy Savage, how about your mental state? How about what people are saying about it? Yeah. So I love that portion of this promo as well. Yeah, but we get a beautiful quote. That is awesome. I'm living on the edge, and if anybody else out here isn't living on the edge, then you're taking up too much room.
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic.
Up next, we had Sting and Luger versus the Steiners. Prior to this match getting underway, you got the Horsemen running out to the limo, and the limo is empty, which leads you to believe that some shit is going down soon. And then we go back to the ring. The match ends within seconds of it getting started as Nick Patrick is slightly bumped into by Luger. Luger and Rick Steiner have a collar and elbow tie-up, and Rick Steiner pushes Luger backward. Luger stumbles into Nick Patrick. Nick Patrick disqualifies Luger there and builds Nick Patrick's heel persona.
It does. I mean, even the Steiners were disappointed. Nick Patrick tries to lift up the hand in victory of one Scott Steiner, and Scott Steiner's like, "No, that's bullshit, man. That's not how I want to win this match."
Right.
I love that too. I mean, it went to show you that everybody involved in the match was not happy with Nick Patrick, and frankly, at this point, you can't really be trusted much.
Yeah, he's slowly becoming part of that persona non grata group of the NWO. He's persona non grata within WCW because he still works for WCW and he's not officially a part of the NWO, but everybody's kind of just all pissed off about him and everything that he does. Main event of the evening, Horsemen, Dungeon of Doom. You've got an 8-man tag, Kevin Sullivan, Big Bubba, and the Faces of Fear doing battle with the Horsemen. One of the funniest botch spots we've seen up to this point is Mongo falling off of the ropes and just being very, very clumsy and green as he could be.
It's true. I thought that was pretty damn funny also.
Poor guy. But, they're trying to, WCW did him no favors in just rushing him into the Four Horsemen and without having him be serviceable as a wrestler. And if you're going to have him feud with the guys the Horsemen are feuding with, I mean, he's not going to have guys that he can just wrestle shittily with. I mean, Kevin Sullivan, Big Bubba, and the Face of Fear, all those guys have been wrestling in mainstream for, at this point, over a decade. So, probably 15, 20 years. And he's in there, been wrestling for, he took a class at the Learning Annex, and he came out there and starts wrestling and shit. And he just, he looked terrible in that MGM match where he kind of fucks up a spot with Sting. And then here he falls around the ring, and it just looked terrible. And I'm glad they got him out of the ring, and then they get, Flair starts low-blowing everybody. But during the back, they cut to Sting and Luger walking briskly after Nick Patrick, and we see DiBiase getting into that limo. And then Sting throws this fucking huge rock through the window. And I started thinking when I was watching, like, where did DiBiase end up getting at that point? Like, did he stay in the limo? Or when they focus on the limo, does he get out of the limo and, like, walk off screen somewhere? Because Sting throws the shit out of that rock through that window.
He really did, man.
So, and it speeds off as they look through there. I mean, broken glass is broken glass. So I wonder where DiBiase was in that spot.
Maybe he scurried up to the very front.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's what you would think, or you would hope in that position, I would guess.
Yeah, I took note of how the police officer, because Sting and Luger jump into a cop car, take off after him, and this cop's just like, "Whoa, okay, yeah, here you go." But then you and I talked about how, like, well, this is a situation where you have essentially what is a criminal heel faction in NWO that the police aren't taking care of. The wrestlers are trying to.
Yeah.
So in that way, it makes sense that a cop would just allow the wrestlers to get in his car and go. Better they handle it than him.
And a lot of times in the heat of the moment, you don't really think about shit like that either. If you're Sting and Luger, if you're so angry that you're going to vandalize a car, you're going to throw a block through a window that could injure a human, what's the difference in stealing a damn cop car like your Charlie Tweeter in Varsity Blues? There's no
Great reference.
No difference.
Great reference.
No difference. And like you said, the cop could have just been like, hey, fuck it, it's Sting and Luger. They're going after the NWO. I don't care. I'll just tell them that they took my car. They overpowered me because they're fucking Sting and Lex Luger.
My weapons were useless against them.
Yeah, they were so strong. They just threw me down, beat me and stuff. And Bischoff pushes that Sting and Luger are going to jail, but I thought it was, and we talked about this a little bit prior to coming on the show, that I thought it was really well done to get Sting and Luger out of the arena so that they weren't involved in that beatdown late that's coming.
True.
You know,
no,
it gets them out of the arena, and it also kind of creates a situation where if the Horsemen don't see, which I think I don't know if they do or not, we'll have to see what happens. If the Horsemen don't see that Sting and Luger were chasing after DiBiase in the limo, they're going to call into question Sting and Luger's loyalty. You know, we're getting our asses kicked out here, and our two guys that we're supposed to trust inside of the War Games cage in 2 weeks at Fall Brawl didn't come out and help us. You know, if you're Sting or if you're Flair and them, that's what you're thinking about, maybe.
True, and WCW also, they got to have all hands on deck.
Yeah.
Sting and Luger being two of your top baby faces, them being out of the building, I mean, you got a lot going on back in the arena. You need those two guys. You need their muscle.
Yeah, and it goes into something that you've talked about in the past about how opportunistic the NWO seems to be. You know, when they invade, you know, guys are overseas, and you know, the NWO knows that, and Bischoff and the announcers push that. Here, they show up in the middle of this match, the outsiders show up, and then Hogan, they lay out the Horsemen on the outside, and they're starting to beat up the Dungeon of Doom inside. They lay out the Dungeon members within the ring, and Horsemen, and they keep getting up on the apron and knocking them down. And then we see, very reminiscent of Hogan's entrance at Bash at the Beach, the Giant comes down, and the announcers are doing the exact same thing that they did at Bash at the Beach, you know, cheering for the Giant to come and level the playing field, clean house. Giant comes in the ring, choke slams Barbarian and Ming. Joins the NWO. Hugs the outsiders, then high-fives Hogan. So the Giant is a part of the New World Order, the first WCW defection since, I guess you could say that Hogan was a WCW defection as well, even though he wasn't regularly on the program at that point.
Yeah, I would definitely call him your first WCW defection, but this was the first WCW defection that we had seen since this whole storyline began.
Yeah, I mean, he was on the other side of this. You know, he lost the WCW heavyweight title at Hog Wild to the NWO.
Yeah.
And you and I had talked about how we wanted to see why the Giant would jump and make that jump. We'll get to that in just a second. Macho Man comes out and just starts wailing on people with chairs. And you really liked the Macho chair spot.
Oh, God. He just came in there and cleaned house. And he gets ready to hit Hogan with the chair. I can remember this show very well. I wanted him to destroy Hogan with that chair. It's a really good-looking spot because he misses. Hogan kind of tackles him, but neither one of them can get much offense because of the position that they're in, kind of grappling on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But then they're able to overtake Macho Man, and he takes, 3 leg drops? He gets choke slammed first, actually. So, but oh my God, when they were on the ground fighting, I can remember as a kid, I wanted Macho to beat his ass.
Yeah, giant choke slams him, and then Hogan leg drops him 3 times, the exact amount that he did at Bash at the Beach. So it just kind of added to the lore and the idea of another slap in the face to WCW. And then Hogan pulls out the yellow spray can out of his tights, because we all carry yellow spray cans in our wrestling tights at all times, just in case we want to spray people with it. And they sprayed Randy Savage a yellow streak down his back, playing into that idea of him being a coward, and playing into the idea of NWO spray painting everything. I think spray paint sales probably went up during this time period.
I think so too.
Kids probably buying stuff and spraying NWO on, Mama's furniture at the lake, or the side of the wheelbarrow, or the trash can, or
Dude,
something.
The side of the Columbiana skating rink.
Somebody tagged the side of the Columbiana skating rink with NWO.
No, I think it'd be funny. It'd just be an appropriate place for that to happen.
I bet you had. I bet somebody somewhere probably put NWO on these overpass bridges that people will spray paint. I guarantee you somebody did it.
I'd wonder how many kids around this period of time went to detention because they're graffitiing shit.
Oh, terrible influences the NWO were on our youth.
Awful. And going back to the yellow spray paint, the yellow line up and down Macho Man's back, I found it to be incredibly humiliating when I was a kid. I knew what it was to be yellow. I knew what that meant.
Yeah, you're from the South.
And that you're and that you're spineless, and for them to put a yellow streak up and down his back, I thought was, and I hated the NWO anyway. Had a lot of heat on me back then, but I'm not. I was not the only one, man. People hated the asses. There's a reason the ring is being filled with debris on a week-to-week basis.
Right. Yeah, you're right. After they beat down the Dungeon of Doom and the Horsemen, the NWO head toward the broadcast booth, and Hogan says he's the most powerful person in professional wrestling and holds up several fingers, intimating there are more members on the way. And then we get the Giant attempting to explain his decision. Now, long story short, he ends up saying that it's money related. But he gets lost in the details of the story, and then Hogan, being the Glomerata, the editor of the Glomerata that he is, Glom City Johnson. And for those of you who don't know, you obviously know the term glomming heat. Both Robert and I attended Auburn University, and our yearbook was called the Glomerata. So it kind of fits into the idea of glomming heat. If Hogan was going to glom heat, he would be the editor of the Glomerata, because he's glomming the shit out of some Giant heat. Giant can't even get his explanation out before Hogan interrupts him.
Which is piss poor, because the entire WCW nation, if you will, we need an explanation as to why you did this.
Oh, yeah.
And he's trying to give it to us. He's talking about how he went down to a house in Florida, that it was massive, that there weren't 5 Harleys, that there were 20, that there wasn't one Mercedes, there were 7 or however many there were. There was Vipers, and how he like you say, he gets interrupted by by Hogan asking him to spit on the WCW sign, really gross and weird and unnecessary as it is. Giant's trying to continue his story, and then we get members of the Dungeon of Doom and the Four Horsemen to come attack them at the broadcast booth.
And then the Giant falls down as he's coming off of the broadcast booth, falls to his ass. If you can imagine somebody that's 7'4" falling to his ass, and then supposed to be going and just destroying people. NWO gets the upper hand again, and security separates them, and Giant tries again to explain. And what's funny is, you pointed this out when we talked about it earlier, is he starts back on almost the exact same spot. He was like, as I was saying, and then Hogan interrupts him again.
Yeah,
and then they start flipping the table, and I guess the Giant doesn't realize that when they flip the table, the headset will come off of his face, and it jerks right off of his head, and he looks kind of surprised, and then he starts like stomping again, and he slips, but he makes it look like he's just stomping on the furniture. It was terrible looking back, but it was so cool as a kid, I'm sure, watching this and being like, good grief, they're going crazy. They're destroying stuff. I mean, the previous week you'd seen them lay everybody out. They're spraying production trucks, spraying NWO on guys' backs. This week they destroy 8 guys, and 9 if you include Macho. They spray a yellow streak down his back. They take over the broadcast booth. They cut off Nitro early, it looks like, because there's no commentary and they've just taken over the show, and they're like, okay, we're out of time. WCW copyright this, 1996, and that's the end.
Yeah, as a kid, I didn't notice how much of a shit show it was, and I still don't know how much the interruptions were planned spots, if you will. I think Hogan was supposed to shut up and just sort of heel it up with the sign and do whatever he wants to do, but I don't think he was supposed to be the glomerata that he was.
No.
I do think that the Dungeon and Horsemen coming over there to try to beat those guys' asses was planned, but
right.
The most important part of this segment was getting a thorough explanation from the Giant, and instead we got Harley Davidsons and Vipers and Mercedes.
Yeah,
and
Hogan yelling, "You can have whatever you want. You can have the part in Arnold Schwarzenegger's new movie, which he actually did, Jingle All the Way, which was a Christmas movie that came out in the winter time of 1996, where the Giant was part of the glorious cast of that shit movie. So
that's Nitro.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it for the September 2nd edition of Nitro. The NWO is fully in control of the program, it seems. Whenever they come on, they just take over completely. The Giant is a part of the NWO, so you have 5 guys, 4 of which will actively be wrestling because DiBiase's still injured. I think he's retired from the ring at this point. But it does a lot to kind of flesh out the idea of the NWO. You've got Ted DiBiase, who they are building off of his gimmick from the WWF, where he was the $1 Million Man and he had more money than anybody on the roster. And his tagline was, everybody has a price. And he's even known notoriously for trying to buy the WWF heavyweight title. When the Giant, or Andre the Giant, beats Hogan in a contested Saturday Night's Main Event finish, the title is held up, which is what causes the Macho Man title reign at WrestleMania 4. The Winged Eagle belt's held up because Ted DiBiase buys the Winged Eagle belt from Andre so that he could be the WWF World Heavyweight Champion. So it all comes back to this, that you have WCW using these established names and what the wrestling fans know to be true as a character to kind of weave it into their real life storyline here.
Which I think is pretty brilliant.
It is. It's fantastically brilliant because now you've heard for weeks since Bash at the Beach, Heenan and Bischoff and Zbyszko and Schiavone, everybody talking about how much money Hulk Hogan has because he's been at the pinnacle of the business for so many years, and he has his own TV show, he has all these movies, he has these commercials, he's on the Right Guard commercial at this time. He's been all over the place. He's a multi-millionaire and well known for being a multi-millionaire. Then you throw DiBiase's money in there. It just adds to the lore of the NWO.
At this point, they are just chock full of massive stars. We've talked about this.
Oh, yeah.
Every one of them having main evented WWF television for so many years. It's a really impressive group of guys, man. Even with Giant, like now you got Giant in the fold.
Yeah, I mean you have three guys that have held a world title.
Yeah.
For either WWF or WCW, and you've got one guy who had been one of the top heels in WWF for a long time. Like I said, main evented WrestleMania 4. We talked about Scott Hall, how he stole the show at WrestleMania 10. Had another great ladder match at SummerSlam that same year with Shawn Michaels. Main evented the Royal Rumble in '93 against Brett. Diesel, Kevin Nash, was the WWF champion in WWF. And, Ted DiBiase. And Hogan, of course, was the biggest star up to that point that the WWF had ever created.
And even if you weren't a wrestling fan around this time, Hogan was a household name.
Oh, yeah.
Hulk
Hogan,
like, that's a household name,
yeah,
for sure.
You're saying, I watch wrestling. Oh, that's the stuff with Hulk Hogan in it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, he was a mainstream guy. So at this point, I think this is the strongest the NWO ever is.
I agree.
Because once they start adding all these other guys, it goes downhill from there. Because start to question, why is this guy in there? Why aren't there more legit main eventers from the WWF?
Yeah, it started to get really, really big and
they water
out
it down.
Of control.
I mean, you bring in Buff Bagwell, you bring in Conan, you bring in Scott Norton, you bring in Masahiro Chono. None of those guys really matter on the mainstream scheme of things. Even when you bring in X-Pac or Six, Sean Waltman, he's a downgrade from star power that you have in these other guys.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it makes sense if you brought in Curt Hennig at that point. Curt Hennig fits into that mold.
It is too bad. Like, if I could rearrange the NWO and change up the order a little bit, that might be the first change I would make. I would have Curt Hennig be the sixth guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure exactly what Mr. Perfect, how he fit in the grand scheme of things at WWF around this particular point in time, but regardless, he was already a massive massive star. Would have made sense to add to that NWO roster.
Yeah, but he doesn't come in. He doesn't come into the WWF, or he doesn't come into WCW until '97.
Okay,
a year. I mean, we don't get that big expansion until later in this year, because we get a couple members soon. I don't want to spoil anything, but we've got 4 members coming before the end of September, and then 2 more in November, and then 4 more in December.
Gotcha. Well,
so you've got more coming. And then, I mean, you look, and there's so many. Scott Steiner, The Disciple, Brian Adams, Dusty Rhodes, Louis Spicoli, Rick Rude, Kurt Hennig, Conan, Tenzan, The Great Muta, Dennis Rodman, Savage, Chono, Scott Norton, Big Bubba, VK Wall Street, Buff Bagwell, Bischoff, Miss Elizabeth, Vincent, Six, NWO Sting. That's on top of the 5 guys that we have. Not even to mention when you get into the split and you've got NWO Hollywood, the Wolfpack, and the NWO Elite.
This, you know what? Honestly, it's going to get kind of hard to watch at some point.
It's just watered down. Oh, no. We've talked, I guess, privately about, I've watched some late, I guess Vince Russo had just come into the company. I wanted to watch some old Brett matches. I wanted to see some Brett stuff in WCW. So I'm watching the WCW Mayhem, and the start of WCW Mayhem starts talking about this WCW heavyweight title tournament. So I'll watch the Nitros leading up to that tournament, and it's just so overbooked nonsense. Everything is so overbooked.
It is. All that shit can wait. It can wait.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying what we have now. For the most part, a well-booked product.
Yeah, we've got the build to Fall Brawl. Fall Brawl War Games is on its way. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing the fallout from the Giant. Also looking to see the debut of Glacier and talking about the Nitro that takes place in Birmingham that I actually attended.
Nice.
So,
all right, man. That's all
I
I got
to look
for.
Go ahead and push your social media before we get out of here.
Being_large on Twitter, Instagram, places of that nature. And then Facebook, Robert McElroy, actor, hoping to get involved in some new things here pretty soon. So
you can follow us on Twitter at A Combined Weight. And if you have any questions or comments, you'd like to email us or just send us some loving praise, birthday cards, PayPal payments if you just want to throw us some money because you've got money like DiBiase. It's at acombinedweight@gmail.com. As always, thanks for clicking the link that brought you here on PWInsiderElite.com. You've been listening to At a Combined Weight. We'll see you next week.